Today we'll be focusing on IGCSE biology, and we will begin this lesson by doing a recap of what we have learned earlier. So, can you please define a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell? You can either write it on the whiteboard or you can send it to me via the chat. So a prokaryotic cell is a cell without a nucleus. The DNA is naked and it is not packed in a nuclear membrane. That means there is no compartmentalization here. A eukaryotic cell, on the other hand, contains a nucleus and the DNA is packed within a nuclear membrane. They tend to be a lot more complex and much bigger than prokaryotic cells. So can you think of some examples of prokaryotics and eukaryotes, please? So examples of prokaryotes can be a lot of bacteria. Eukaryotes are animals, plants, fungi. So prokaryotes tend to be bigger and tend to be multicellular. Prokaryotes are smaller and unicellular. So our plan for today is to look at organization of the organism. So we'll be focusing on cell structure. And this will mean basically focusing on the eukaryotic cells. We will look at how the plant cells and animal cells look under a light microscope, and the subcellular features, and what these subcellular features, or organelles as they're referred to, what is their role in the cell. Okay, so let's begin with an animal cell structure. Now this might be a little bit more complicated than we're previously used to seeing, but we now know at this level that eukaryotic cells have subcellular structures. That means one big cell has many smaller ingredients within it. They're all compartmentalized. So one of the main things that a eukaryotic cell will have is a nucleus. The nucleus is responsible for containing the genetic information. The next important aspect of a eukaryotic cell is a mitochondria. The mitochondria here, denoted in the orange, is the powerhouse of the cell. Then we have the ribosomes, which is on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. These ribosomes are important for protein synthesis. Now, don't worry, we'll be looking at all of these in depth. And finally, all of these organelles are contained in the cytoplasm, which is the site for most of the chemical reactions. The cell is held together by a cell membrane on the periphery. So you can see this is the structure of an animal cell. Animal cells and most eukaryotic cells will also have vesicles. Vesicles are smaller enclosed membranes that basically help you transport substances from one place to another. Okay, so let's look at what are the exact functions of these subcellular organelles. Okay, so primarily we have the nucleus, and like I mentioned earlier, the nucleus contains the DNA. This also controls cell division. It controls various enzymes that tells a cell that, okay, now's the time that we have to get bigger, and now's the time that we have to split into two. That is cell division. Next, and one of the most important features of a cell, is the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the site for aerobic respiration. You'll frequently see the mitochondria being referred to as the powerhouse of the cell. It is the organelle that is responsible for giving it a lot of energy. So if you think about it, cells that have high rates of metabolism, that need a lot of energy, they have more mitochondria. Can you think what kind of cells in what organ will require a lot of mitochondria? Have a think. Cells that are present in muscles, in the sacroiliac, the muscles, tend to have a lot more mitochondria. When you're using your arm and you're doing any rigorous exercise, those muscles are going to require a lot more mitochondria than, say, for example, another cell in your body. The next important aspect, subcellular organelle, is the ribosome. The ribosome is the site of protein production in protein synthesis. So here is where the proteins are made. These proteins can be used by the cell, these proteins can be then exported via a vesicle outside to another cell. For example, hormones. This is how hormones work. So the ribosome is very integral to the subcellular organization of the cell. Then we have the cell membrane. The cell membrane holds the cell together, and you can think of it as like a bodyguard. It doesn't allow everyone in. It checks who can come in. And the cell membrane will have certain aspects in it, whether it will decide whether what should come in or not. They can be cell specific or they can be general. Vesicles are small enclosed membrane structures that are used to transport substances from point A to point B within the cell. Now, if you imagine, there's a lot of stuff going on in the cytoplasm. There are all these things. There's protein synthesis happening. There are solvents and solutes in the cytoplasm. So if something is made, you don't want it to get damaged, right? You want it to be perfect, the way the cell created it. So because of that, there are vesicles that make sure they get it from point A to point B perfectly. And finally, all this is within the cytoplasm. This is where the chemical reactions take place. It's made up of water and many different solutes. Now let's look at a plant cell. Now a plant cell is also a eukaryotic cell. It's very similar to an animal cell, but there are some key differences. Okay, let's have a look. So, first we have the cell wall. The cell wall is not present in animal cells, but the cell wall in a plant basically gives it a lot of structure, and it is made out of cellulose, which is a type of complex sugar. Then there is a cell membrane, which, like the animal cell, also decides what is going to come in the cell and what's going to go out. It is again the security guard on the periphery. The other interesting thing that a plant cell will have is a vacuole. It's a permanent vacuole. Now this contains the cell sap. It can contain the sap dissolved in solvents, primarily water, and it can have other ingredients as well. This helps keep the plant cell in shape. It gives it more structure. It keeps it rigid. Then we have mitochondria. The mitochondria serves the same function for aerobic respiration. It is absolutely integral for giving the cell the energy it needs. Then we have chloroplasts. Now, chloroplasts are not in animal cells. Chloroplasts are what contain chlorophyll. Now, you may have learned this previously in previous years. Chlorophyll is the green pigment that is essential for photosynthesis. So now let's have a look at some of these definitions a little closer. So, the remaining of the definitions for everything else and their functions are basically the same. But let's revisit the three things that are different in a plant cell. Cell wall, made up of cellulose. It gives the plant cell structure. A chloroplast, it contains the chlorophyll pigment, and it contains a lot of different enzymes that are important for photosynthesis. And then there is the vacuole, which helps give the plant cell structure, but it's also important for storage of different kinds of materials. Now that we have learnt the key subcellular organelles, let's do a little test. So I have put some past paper questions up here. It's for 4 marks, which means it should take you no more than 5 minutes to write this. Would you like to have a go? So let's think about how ribosomes are found in plant cells and in animals. So can you name the process that occurs in ribosomes? Yes, that is protein synthesis. Very good. Next. This is the diagram of a cell wall on a leaf of a grass plant. Complete the diagram by drawing and labeling other structures in this leaf cell. So here we can refer back to the diagram that we did. We have a cell wall, we have a cell membrane, we have the cytoplasm, we have the chloroplast, we have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which has the ribosomes, we have the vacuole, and we have the mitochondria. And then we have the nucleus. Very good. So those are all the subcellular organelles of the plant cell. So let's review what we have learned today. So today we have learned cellular structure and organization, and we have described the different kinds of subcellular organisms, subcellular organelles that exist in animal cells and in plant cells. Hope you've had a fun lesson. Thank you.